So we are very lucky today to be joined by two of Amazon's best, which is Richard Yusof and Phil Person. So Phil's from the Specialized Solution Architect for the end user computing at Amazon, and Richard's part of the sales team and has created the end using solution as well. So we'd always love your feedback and any presentation ideas. So this month we'll be giving away a $100 Amazon gift card to a random person who gives their feedback. You can see the link there, and we'll also be providing that link through an email afterwards. So if you also wanted to learn more about remote working, PolarSeven does have their own remote working page. So if you go to the remote working, so PolarSeven, there we are, polarseven.com/our-services/P7 remote working. You can get more information on that. So just on the next slide, so I'll hand over now, well, virtually, I guess, to Philip and Richard, who will be talking about remote working.
Thanks, mate. So hi, my name is Richard Yusof and I lead the AWS end user computing practice within AWS. We've been working closely with our customers, especially over the last month or so in this time to help provide them remote working solutions and business continuity. And Phil Persons can do his introduction now if he wants.
Yeah, hey guys, my name is Phil Person. I'm the Specialist Solution Architect lead here at AWS for end user compute. So we cover all customers, big and small. Any customer that uses our technology, we're generally across.
Great. So this is the first time we've done a virtual meetup. So I know generally in our meetups, it's a lot of Q&A and a lot of discussion, and we're trying to make this as interactive as possible. So feel free to start piling on the questions. We do have slides to go through and a bit of a discussion points, but we're happy, for Phil and I, are happy to make this as interactive as possible. We're going to have some polls for you guys to answer. So please start popping your questions up onto the Q&A section, and Phil and I will do our best to answer all the questions that we can. So with that in mind, let's go to our first poll. So if the guys can push up a poll, please. The poll is, does your organization currently have a working from home arrangement? So let's see, and hopefully this does give us the results, because last time we used this function, it gave us the results on the fly. It's just interesting to see, over the last month, we've been engaging with a lot of customers across Australia and New Zealand who are trying to enable working from home solutions. Some of them have scaled their traditional VDI platforms, some of them have scaled out their VPN technology, and others have allowed us to use AWS solutions, which includes workspaces and AppStream, to provide their users with a working from home solution. So I'm not sure if we end the poll, does it give us the results? Sorry guys, does it give us any results? Everybody has a working from home solution. Awesome, it's good to hear. What we've seen recently is that a lot of companies have got that up and running. Probably some are happy with their solutions, others are trying to think, well, if this new environment where we're all going to be working from home for the next 6 months, how do we enhance it? How do we make sure it's secure? And how do we ensure that we can have our traditional processes in place, which include patch management, antivirus, but also what if we have to onboard a new person we're hiring, or what if people are leaving? How do we offboard them through a working from home solution? And they're starting to think about a longer term strategy. So we'll discuss some of those things that our customers are doing in the next couple of sections. With that in mind, we thought we'd start off with one of our own stories, because we always like talking about customer stories, and this is a good story for ourselves. And Phil's going to talk you through Amazon IT and what we have deployed over the last little while and over the last year or so with using our own technology to provide solutions for ourselves. So with that in mind, Phil, do you want to take over the next few sections?
Yeah, cool, mate. All right. So one of the most frequently asked questions we get from customers is tell us who's using it and how they're using this stuff. So One of the coolest use cases we actually have and that we can speak about is Amazon's own journey with workspaces. So we've currently got, and this is a published story, which is super cool. We've currently got about 25,000 desktops deployed globally with both our internal staff and also contractors accessing these desktops. These desktops are managed, so 25,000 desktops are managed by 2 engineers, which is super cool. So it's a great news story and a news story around how this platform can scale and not only scale from an infrastructure perspective, but help you scale with minimal effort and resource from your side, which is super cool. So a couple of use cases that we use workspaces for ourselves. So I am literally at home. I am on my personal Mac, so it's my personal PC. I am connected to my corporate Amazon workspace, which is super cool. So we use it for both internal employees accessing our internal networks, but also our contracting staff. So it's a way that they are able to access their corporate PC or their corporate desktop in a secure fashion without having to issue them that laptop or that PC. Obviously, the client engineering team previously spent a long time having to configure laptops and PCs to ship out to our end users, and this is the really creative way that they can actually deliver that in a really cool way. Also, just quickly on the subsidiaries section. So one of the big use cases, and Rich can talk to this in a little bit, is M&A activity. So for companies that onboard and offboard, we see those customers using workspaces as a means of doing that, and that's exactly what Amazon uses for workspaces. So let's jump into this next poll. And again, we're happy to take questions on the fly. This is your session as an attendee. We want this to be as valuable that it can be for you. So if you've got any burning questions around any of these topics, please throw them into the Q&A section. Happy to take them on the fly or afterwards, depending on the complexity of that question. So the question here is, what is your current solution to work from home? So quite a lot of the time we speak to customers, their VPN is quite a common path. But we're also interested to know if you guys have come across workspaces in the past, use other virtual desktops or remote desktop services.
Give you guys all a minute to answer these questions, and then we'll maybe have some commentary around the results.
There we go.
I'm not surprised seeing VPN as the top leader. What we've seen with a lot of our customers, they had VPN already in place for working from home when people within the organization or a subset of the people in the organization want to work from home. And for them, it was probably one of the easiest in their mind, the easiest and the quickest way to scale this up. The conversations around VPN have changed slightly with this situation being more than a short-term fix. A lot of our customers are saying, well, how are we going to patch and maintain these laptops that are out there in the field now? Because if we want to do Microsoft monthly updates or roll out new packages, we have to make sure our customers are logged into the VPN and stay logged in through the time of patching. Some of them are saying when they're trying to do that, whether they get disconnected or someone shuts off their PC, they're starting to think, well, how do we continue to maintain that? The other part is that some of the laptops that they had in their field, they may have rolled out, weren't the best or the high-end laptops. They were kind of lower end. So they're starting to say, some of the users are complaining about performance or complaining about how slow their laptops are when they're all having to work from home. It's good to see we've got some customers on this conversation today. So thanks for being a customer of AWS and using workspaces, and be interested to hear from yourselves how you're finding that solution. Sorry, the poll's gone. I'm a bit surprised around how much people are using remote desktops still as a way of working from home. We still see it as a part of the solution. And VDI has been in a lot of organizations, so that continues to be part of people's solution set. Phil, did you have anything that you want to add to those
Yeah,
products?
only additional insights is it's actually quite common for customers to come to us with a jump box style scenario where they typically using some kind of remote desktop services and a VPN perhaps to securely jump box into IT infrastructure to do admin tasks. So things like event logs, troubleshooting applications on servers, restarting services, all that kind of IT admin kind of stuff. And we're seeing our end user compute portfolio fill that space actually quite interestingly enough, specifically upstream, which I can talk about that shortly.
Cool.
Awesome. So
That's a great segue.
Jumping into, yeah, absolutely cool segue, right? So let's kind of step through some of the products in our portfolio. So Richard and I cover four products here in Australia. So workspaces, we spoke about the Amazon use case for workspaces. So it's a desktop as a service. I like to call it a desktop as an API. It's super cool. Infrastructure as code, all that kind of really nice stuff. And we'll talk about what that means and how it looks in a little bit. But it provides a persistent desktop for your user in the cloud. The second product, which is super interesting, is Amazon AppStream. So this is streaming your application or applications to your end users through a web browser, which is super cool. So we're seeing customers use AppStream to SaaSify legacy applications, and I'm holding my fingers up in inverted commas as I say that, SaaSify, and I'm going to trademark that word. They're publishing out things like SAP GUI, which is traditionally a really heavy thing to manage and maintain from an administrative perspective, having to roll it out to all of their endpoints. And instead, they're actually managing it and maintaining it in a central place. So they deploy it once into AppStream, and then the users access that legacy application through a web browser. So they're consuming it now as a browser-based service, which is super powerful.
We did an AppStream project recently with Great Plains and SaaSifying it in inverted commas. So it was really good and quick to get that clunky app up and running quickly. So it was really cool.
Yeah, super cool. We've seen customers deploy AppStream as fast as 90 minutes. You can get up and running with a pretty simple application inside of AppStream. It's normally quite easy to stand up. Obviously, just standalone. I think when you start to talk about integrating into Active Directory and all that kind of thing, it makes the discussion point a little bit more complex. But in its own right, it is actually quite simple and easy to stand up. So the last two products to quickly talk about. So WorkDocs is our file sharing collaboration platform, heavily tied into Workspaces. So it's actually part of our Workspaces bundle. So it's 50 gig per user per month, free, included in your Workspaces cost, comes with WorkDocs. You can actually increase, obviously, if you need more storage per user, you can increase that per user per month. It's actually quite granular, which is super nice. And the last product is Amazon WorkLink. So WorkLink allows you to stream a web application securely to an endpoint, so a mobile phone. So think about it as if you're on your phone and you've got a VPN connection, or you're going to some internal web page and you might have an MDM solution wrapped around that particular mobile phone. You're going to a web page, but there's data bits that are left on the phone. So example is the web browser would put a cache, cache your content, cache your keystrokes perhaps on that device. So what we're actually doing is streaming that web application down to your mobile phone, which is super cool. It's not available in the APAC region yet, but if you have a specific need or want for this particular product, please come to us and we can help you out with that. So I'm going to take a very unusual step here and actually do an architecture deep dive. I know there are some techos on the line, so I just wanted to kind of satisfy your craving to get a bit of a what's under the cover. So I'm going to pull the covers off. Amazon Workspaces specifically. Amazon AppStream performs it and behaves very similarly to this. And then hopefully let you guys walk away with an understanding of what we're actually managing on your behalf. So Workspaces is a managed desktop as a service. So what we're managing as part of this particular platform on your behalf, and why our customers choose to use it. So there's a lot of arrows and a lot of stuff on this box, right? So the first North Star worth calling out is our Workspaces team, and then North Star is being able to access your desktop from anywhere on any device. So that's the first thing to call out. It's a public facing service. You can literally go to an internet cafe if you want to, open a web browser and connect to your secured desktop if you wanted to. Likewise, you could go to your home, your parents' home, or some other place. You could work on your own PC or your personal PC if your company has a bring your own device policy. And we also then are able to securely access your desktop in the cloud. So it's super cool. On the left-hand side, I kind of walks through all of these bits that you see on the screen. On the left-hand side, we typically have a customer's office, if you like. That is kind of that larger rectangle on the left. You would have your users, and they would be physically sitting at a PC or a tablet of some description. We'll talk about those devices shortly. Underneath that, you typically have your corporate data center. This is where your on-premise Active Directory, your DNS servers, file shares, database servers, all of that kind of stuff would normally sit. On the right-hand side, we have AWS space, the AWS cloud. Obviously, we're talking about the Sydney region here today. Most customers that we talk to here in Australia prefer to deploy into the Sydney region. But Workspaces, it's a globally accessible service. So we do have customers deploying, as an example, in Singapore, if they've got their end users in Manila, Philippines, and also parts of India as well. So you can push the desktop close to your end users, which is super interesting to a lot of customers. The AWS region box is obviously Sydney. And then underneath that, we have a managed zone. So this managed zone is infrastructure that we're managing on your behalf as part of a managed service offering. Again, it's accessible from anywhere on any device, and it's a managed service. What we do is we place in the bottom boxes, which is your AWS accounts, your VPCs. We place supporting network infrastructure into those. And from there, it's able to access any other service or resource, both within AWS, but also on premise through things like a direct connect or an IPsec VPN. So if you follow the far right line from the user's client workspace, so the users would install the thick client. So we've got a thick client available for Windows PCs, Mac, Android, Chromebooks, and also Android. We support tablets down to a 10-inch screen. We don't want our end users trying to access their desktop on a mobile phone, as an example. That's a bad user experience. So our product has been built literally for the end user in mind. So they would install that client onto that device. We also support zero clients. So we've got a lot of customers, especially in the government space, that use zero client devices. That they don't want any footprint at all on those devices or those endpoints. They want a secure session that that user logs into. So authentication, so you need to authenticate against something to log into your desktop, right? Even if you're physically sitting at your desktop. The first thing we do is authenticate against your Active Directory. So in this particular picture, we use something called an AD connector, which does a proxy relay of your authentication request back to your on-premise Active Directory in this slide. Your Active Directory could easily be in EC2, or you could use our managed AD services, such as Managed Active Directory or Simple AD is another one as well. Again, with the AD connector, we're placing the network interface into your VPC, and that's how it's able to access your Active Directory in this particular scenario. A lot of customers don't want to manage a separate directory service, a separate identity provider. They just want the same identity provider, the same Active Directory. They just want the users to have the same login for all devices, and that is what we have in this picture. Once the user is authenticated, again, these are public endpoints. So the authentication endpoints are public. We're managing these on your behalf. They're load balancers, and also the streaming gateways are load balancers. It's also important to note that these are natively spread across 2 of our availability zones here in the Sydney region. It's a multi-availability service out of the box, which is super interesting to a lot of customers that worry about having to do BCP in the event of a failure. So these auth gateways and streaming gateways are all publicly facing. And once the user is authenticated, we place an OAuth token onto that PC, and they're able to then start a streaming session. Should also note we can natively integrate with an MFA service as part of that. So we just talk into Radius. So as long as you have a Radius server, then we're good to go. And there's a gazillion different plugins for Radius. We see very, very commonly in this space things like Okta MFA, Geo MFA, Azure MFA, all of these third-party kind of bolt-ons have bolt-ons to Radius. So the soft tokens, obviously, and then also hard tokens, so things like Gemaltos and RSA tokens as well. So once you've authenticated, the streaming session starts. So what you're actually connecting to is an EC2 instance that's under the hood of all of this thing. So we're building all of this stuff on top of the Amazon building blocks, if you like, to produce a managed service offering. So you're connecting to an instance that is yours and for the life of your session, for the life of your workspace. It's a persistent desktop. And again, we place that network adapter into your VPC and your network so that it's then able to access on-premise resource or anything else into Amazon. So there's much more to it. That's a much bigger discussion point, but I just kind of wanted to show you guys what we're managing on your behalf as part of a managed service offering from Amazon. What we don't do, and it's part of our shared security responsibility, is manage the underlying container. So what the workspace instance is, we manage up into the operating system, but it's then the end user or the end customer that's responsible for things like patch management, AV, making sure it's secured from there. So making sure that that user environment is as secure as it can be. So with that, we might shift gears. I've not seen any questions pop up, so I'm not sure if there are any burning questions anybody wanted to ask. But with that, we'll shift into the poll, and then if anyone's got any questions, please yell out at the same time. Is that poll running?
I haven't seen it pop up. No poll?
Hey, Jackson, are you able to pop that poll up?
Yep, I'll just 1 second.
If it doesn't work, we can just move on so that people aren't waiting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Move on to the next one, and we'll
Sure. All good.
Cool. All right, over to you, Rich, for the next couple of slides.
Let's build this out. So I guess why are customers using AWS Workspaces? I think one of the reasons why we chose to do the security networking architecture first, because a lot of our customers start with what does this look like from a security perspective? Because as you can imagine, we're now moving a desktop into the cloud, and one of the main concerns is security. So we normally address security and authentication and group policy up front. But some of the reasons why customers are using it, and I'm actually going to start from the bottom up because probably the most relevant right now is actually now business continuity. We had some of our customers already deploy workspaces from a business continuity perspective, and during this situation, they scaled up. They just turned the tap on. Some of the numbers from some of our customers where they were deployed, they had about 1,000 workspaces, and they went and deployed 2,000 workspaces to meet the requirements for this current situation. We had a net new customer called First Mac, or not net new, sorry, they had 30 workspaces for overflow. They went and deployed 400 workspaces to maintain business continuity. And they did that through the Philippines and throughout Australia. Some of the customers are replacing their current VDI platform. So they've used other technologies in the past and they're looking at a replacement. They're part of the AWS journey and they're moving a lot of their on-prem solutions to the AWS cloud, and they're looking to use more native solutions from us. So they're looking at it as a replacement. Phil touched on this before, and I think someone else touched on it before when we talked about specialized applications. So we look at workspaces and AppStream, and they look at some of their specialized apps, some geospatial, 3D rendering, some high-end NVIDIA requirements where they've had bulky machines sitting on really expensive machines sitting in people's offices to run these applications. They're looking at using it for workspaces. Merger and acquisitions is a big one for us as well, where they're onboarding or offboarding a company really quickly, and they just spin up access to the environment, access to the application data in a secure manner. remote workers, which we all are now. We all fit that criteria, and contractors was always a good use case for workspaces. Why are they using it? Why are they choosing AWS workspaces? Well, firstly and foremost, if you're working with end users, the most important thing is user experience. If you can't maintain user experience, that's the first person that's going to complain. They're going to not be happy and they're not going to be able to be productive. So we need to make sure workspaces meet their user experience requirements. Agile and elastic. So we can scale up, we can scale down, and we have a global footprint. So we can use multiple different instance types. So from a low-end standard 2 CPUs, 4 gig of memory to a high-end with NVIDIA graphics cards put into it. You only pay for what you use, so you pay per user per month, and it can be turned on or turned off as you require it. When we look at it as a managed services, when we normally do business case or TCOs, the cost of running a AWS workspace is always cheaper than running an on-prem current VDI solution because we take care of everything for you, all the server storage and networking required, and our customers just have to manage the OS and above. I touched on global scale, so we have people deploying workspaces all around the world. We've got customers now deploying both in Singapore and Sydney, as they have people offshore in Asia and using the Singapore data center to access their environment, but also within Sydney. Phil went through the security aspects of this, and the other one, the last one, is our reliability. We have multiple ways of deploying workspaces to ensure that it meets your availability requirements and business continuity. So the two things that it's always worth noting is there is no lock-in contracts or complex licensing for AWS workspaces. It's a very simple model. You pay for what you use, and it's based on the number of users you have. Based on the number of users using the service, sorry, I should say, to clarify. So you can use 1 workspace, you can use 100 workspace, you can use 1,000 workspace. We'll only charge you for the user that's using a workspace for the life of that user. So we don't have any complex architectural complex cost model, and there's no lock-in contract, so you can turn it on or turn it off. We have 2 pricing models as well, so it can be monthly or hourly. So if you have people that need access only a couple of hours a day to a workspace, you can use hourly model, or you can use it for the month, which means it's always on, which means from the time the person uses it to the end of the day, they have instant access to that workspace, which is a persistent workspace as well. So we don't blow it away, they don't delete it, they can log into a workspace, get disconnected and log back in, and the workspace will be in exactly the same state as they left it, the cursor, the word they typed in a Word document, or the PowerPoint they were working on. So we'll just wanted to discuss, and Phil mentioned, and I've mentioned as well, we talk about it as a managed service. So, and I just wanted to put this up here because it's been a common question from a lot of our customers that are currently rolling out workspaces, and we thought it'd be easy just to explain it. So, on a current VDI solution, on-prem, you would have to have the hardware, some servers and storage and networking to look after. You'd have to install some software from one of the vendors that provide VDI solutions, and then you'd have admins to look after both the infrastructure, so patching and maintaining the hardware, but also managing the desktop environment. VDI, we also support VDI on AWS, so we have customers running VDI and AWS from both other companies that provide that, so they can primarily run. We provide them infrastructure. So in this scenario, AWS is providing you all the hardware, server storage, and networking to provide that. You're installing your software on an EC2 instance, and then you still have to administrate the whole environment to maintain it for your customers or for your end users. In the AWS end user service, we take care of all that. We take care of all the servers, all the storage, all the networking, all the requirements, all the gateways and authentication required, and our customers have to look at the OS and above. What this means is that because it's a persistent desktop and it's a Windows 10 desktop or Windows 10 experience, our customers can use the current management tool sets they have in place. If they're using SCCM to manage desktops today, they continue to use SCCM. If they're using group policies to apply policies, they continue to use group policies. We're not changing the way you manage a desktop, but just how you get access to your desktop. And I think Phil calls it desktop as an API. I always say that all we're doing is setting up a new branch office for you, but it's in our cloud. And instead of buying hardware from any other hardware manufacturers, we're providing you the hardware, and you just have to maintain the OS and above. So we've got another poll. See if we can get any polls up and running, and we'll see if there's any questions that people have. Is anybody looking at using AWS Workspaces now? I know I saw before in one of the other polls there were some customers using it. It'd be interesting to see what this looks like from a results perspective. And the results. So I guess the majority of customers haven't looked at workspaces, which is one of the reasons why we started to do some of these sessions. It'd be great to get the information out there so that people can see if it's a viable solution for their use cases and how they use it. We've got obviously seen lots of customers now deploying workspaces. There's another poll we missed. I'm not sure if we want to put that one up there or is it too hard?
Just while that's going on, I just wanted to point out as well, thanks Gerald for reminding us, but Workspaces ticks all the boxes from a compliance perspective as well for like IRAP, SOC, PCI, which is a good selling point for government and financial institutions.
Yeah, Phil, you might want to take that a little bit deeper. You got some good use cases for that as well.
Just quickly, do you want to just answer this poll and then
we'll sorry.
That?
Does your current solution have the capacity to allow all users to work from home? What we did see initially, especially over the last month, is that a lot of the customers didn't have a lot of capacity to completely get everybody working from home, and they quickly had to scale up. So some of that was either buying more hardware and more licenses. I guess this question now probably is evident to that, to say that everybody has either scaled up or scaled out their infrastructure to support a complete working from home solution. Phil, did you want to quickly touch on the certifications?
Yeah, absolutely, guys. So it's a really good call out, and thanks for the note. Yes, Workspaces obviously has a lot of the industry standard certifications. The most interesting one to a lot of Australian customers is obviously things like PCI SOC, all that kind of stuff. But the big one is IRAP from the Australian Signals Directorate. So the IRAP service has branded the Workspaces, or has put their stamp on Workspaces as being compliant for protected level workloads specifically. So we actually have government customers, and we can't talk to too much detail, but we have government customers that run protected level workloads inside of Workspaces. There was a particular customer who spoke at the Public Sector Summit, the AWS Public Sector Summit in Canberra last year. I'm just trying to pull up to see if they had a YouTube video recording that we can send out. So we'll just, if we can find it, I'll put that into the notes section of this, of the Zoom session.
Cool. Phil, did you want to do these ones? Or I'm happy to do it.
You do it, man. I'll keep digging.
Okay, so we just wanted to put this up here because I think what's really important, we touched on government, but Workspaces have been deployed across all verticals and all sectors. So we've seen universities deploy AppStream on scale and use Workspaces. We've seen large enterprise customers to small customers deploying 5 or 10 to meet their requirements. You know, because there is no complex architecture and it's a managed service, you can deploy one workspace or 10,000 workspaces. You know, Facebook was on site on a reInvent last year talking about their deployment for AWS workspaces. So we cover all verticals nor horizontals. There is no use case that we've come across. We said no, we probably wouldn't deploy workspaces, or our customers said workspace doesn't meet those requirements. So as you can see, we just want to put some logos up there. Workspace is a very mature product. It's been within region for the last 4 years, and it's been rolled out quite substantially globally. We've got some more time, so if anybody wants to start putting up questions, happy to answer questions as we go now. I can stop sharing my screen and give you guys back the screen. Is there any questions anybody has? You know, feel free to pop them into the chat. Any questions, guys, or do you want to take over, Jackson, and continue with the rest of your session?
Yep, we'll just we'll continue with the next one.
I think one just popped in. Hey guys, how do customers typically deploy workspaces manually using AWS console tooling? Phil?
Yeah, I'll grab this one. So thanks for the question. Yeah, customers can either, so small customers can choose to run and deploy workspaces through the AWS management console. What we see for large customers, they prefer to integrate it with tooling. So I spoke a little bit before about the fact that a workspace, think of workspace as a desktop as an API. So with an API, you can do almost anything to launch your workspaces with. So we've seen customers use things like putting PowerShell scripts and doing things like a user list of a particular AD user group. And if a new user drops into that user group, it then launches them a workspace. So you could have like a workspace user group, essentially. We've also got customers that integrate it with their standard ITSM services and platforms, such as ServiceNow. So as the user's onboarded into the company, there might be a particular workflow to issue them a virtual desktop with Amazon Workspaces, or alternatively, the user could request one through an internal request process, and their manager could approve it as part of an approval workflow. So there's a bunch of different ways customers can manage and launch their workspaces.
Bill, can you just give us a quick run through on, how you get software into the image and how you then manage and roll out the image for, say, 1 to 100 type users?
There's some interesting philosophies in the end user compute space, and it's not specifically targeted at workspaces, but around how heavy to make your image. So just thinking about the practicality of it, if you have a heavy image, you put all of your applications into it. You then have to patch manage that particular image because you're in an image management mode. Our belief is that's actually not a good use of time. The other extreme is to have a light image where you have almost nothing in your base image. You might have a common component that every user has to have. An example would be like an antivirus or a company standard browser. You might bring it up to a particular service pack level, but you don't do patch management inside of that image. And then you kind of got a halfway point where you might go a little bit heavier and install things like Microsoft Office and other applications which most of your users use. Our take and the way that large customers scale, such as Amazon, and we've actually got a few really large customers here in Australia, is to go down as light as possible with your image. You don't want to get caught up in image management world. That's an overhead, and it's not a productive use of anybody's time. So have just the bare basics in your image, and then use application deployment technologies such as SCCM to then deploy your applications down into that workspace.
So I just saw Gerald had a couple of questions, so I'll answer that one. I'm happy to take this in detail more offline, but a lot of our customers have current VDI solutions in place. Some of them have put workspaces in parallel to their current to make use of new use cases. Others have replaced their current VDI technology, and there's various reasons for that. Some of them, like we discussed before, are migrating to AWS a majority of their workload. So they've moved from an on-prem solution to AWS, and they start looking at whatever's left over. And a lot of the VDI, especially in large enterprise, on-prem solutions took a lot of space up in their data center. So when they look at that space and look at the cost, they start saying, well, do we do a hardware refresh like we do with any other application, or do we start using some native solutions that AWS provides? So they've moved to AWS workspaces to meet that requirement going forward. Jonathan also had a question around how does software in the users, how do the software that the users need get on the workspaces? So it's just a thick client that they can download. They can either download it from our website, and they just download the client onto their laptop or desktop. Some companies have it through a portal, like they have an existing portal where you can download applications from. SCCM portals, a common place where people can download the client. Then they just need to authenticate the username, password, and a registration key. That's part of the installation, but it's just simply a thick client that gets installed. We do have a browser version as well, but the thick client is what we normally use. Hey guys, how do customers integrate their virtual desktops with existing identity and governance solution? So I'll take this a little bit, and then if I'm not good enough, Phil will jump in and answer the rest of it. So we normally use AD to authenticate for workspaces. Inside your environment, there's an AD connector that can be installed, which proxies your connection through to your AD environment, whether it's AD on-prem or AD in AWS or Azure AD. We need a proxy that authentication through that, and then they can apply group policies and everything else the same way you would any other physical desktop. It's just a virtual desktop that we have. Phil, did you want to take that further?
Yeah, absolutely. So to extend on that, it's joined. Most customers choose to join it to their existing identity providers, such as Active Directory. From then, it's just part of your normal networks. So that the biggest lesson learned from a lot of large customers that have scaled workspaces is treat workspaces as part of your normal desktop fleet. It just happens to be a desktop that's in the cloud. Manage it and maintain it. Use the same AD tools as part of that. Your normal group policies will apply. We place a computer object into your Active Directory, so the group policy can apply on both the computer object, but also the user object as they're logging into that workspace as well. So think of it as just a normal desktop that happens to be in the cloud.
Any other questions, guys?
I think we'll move on. So if we just get the presentation slides back up.
Well, thanks, guys. Thanks for inviting Phil and I to this session. Really appreciate it. Love talking to everybody. Feel free to reach out to the PolarSeven guys and get our contact details if you want to reach out to us directly. Happy to have any discussions or conversations to help you guys if you want to still dive deeper into our EUC solutions and remote working.
Great. We've got a last question just come in, and we do have just a couple of minutes. So did you want to quickly answer, so what's the bandwidth usage over 4G like per day?
Oh, yeah, so happy to answer that one. Bandwidth usage, it depends what user's doing, right? And I hate the answer, it depends. But if you think about what we're actually doing, we're streaming the desktop, or streaming a desktop to a user's screen. An example is I baseline myself using my corporate workspace. I'm a pretty static office worker, so I'm in things like Outlook quite a lot of the day. Might be an occasional PowerPoint deck, that kind of thing. I kind of averaged around 12 to 15 kilobits per second. So I kind of consider myself as a fairly normal office worker. On the extreme, so I have seen customers do things like 4K video rendering with it's a particular application that they were using for geospatial, and it was like a data cube on the fly. So pretty much every pixel on that 4K screen was changing all the time, which was super cool to see. That is my personal record as to how much traffic was being sent. That was about 15 megabits per second was going down to that particular PC. Now, having said that, not all users are that extreme. The best advice we can give you guys is, if that's a burning question for you, we need to sit down, understand your use case, and maybe help with a proof of concept or a pilot to establish a baseline for your particular type of user that you're going to be having inside of a workspace.
Great. Thanks a lot for that.
Awesome. The last question from my side, just to back to Jackson, man. We wanted, so we're looking for feedback. All things Amazon are metrics driven. So we are looking to run similar kind of content to similar kind of user groups across Australia. So be super keen to get the attendees' feedback. I know it takes a minute or so, but really appreciate all of your feedback just around what you saw today, what you're expecting to see, and if there's anything we could be doing better.
Yep, definitely. Yeah, just on that, we have the feedback form. I think there's also one more poll to come up just on how everyone was feeling about the presentation. So if you could all just give your satisfaction, 1 being dissatisfied to 5 being extremely satisfied. So that'll be a starting point. And I'll just also mention, so yeah, the past sessions along with this webinar and slides will be available to download from the AWS, the PolarSeven.com/AWS meetups page. The feedback form, which is also just on the last page, we'll be giving away a $100 gift card for Amazon, which will be announced via LinkedIn. So that's also where you can give your, which is on the last slide, sorry, and that's also where you'll be able to give your feedback on how the presentation was today and how we can improve these ongoing. So thanks everyone for coming along. A huge thanks to Phil and Richard. Very interesting hearing about how real businesses are overcoming these remote challenges. Looks like we'll be definitely changing the way we think about this in the future and how businesses manage access.
Thanks for having us, guys. Much appreciated.
Thanks for having us,
Thank you.
guys.
Great.
Thanks
Great
everyone.
content.
Have a
Cheers.
great stuff.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah.